My name is Diogo Benchimol. I'm 13 years old and I study in A.Liessin, Brazilian school, and I'm here to talk about who really discovered the American cup. So, do you know these guys? Can you say something in common among all of them? So, technically, they all discovered America, and I'm here to tell you that it's not like that we learned in school that Christopher Columbus discovered the continent. So, let's first talk about him. Christopher Columbus was an Italian navigator that navigated with Spain in the second half of the 15th century, and he thought that the Earth had a spherical form. So if you go to the west, you could arrive by the east in the Indians. But he didn't know that there were a whole big continent between Europe and Asia. So when he was traveling around the world to arrive in the Indies, he landfalled accidentally in Bahamas in 12th of October of 1492. So he technically discovered America. But he didn't know that it was a new continent. He thought that it were the Indies. So let's talk about one of his friends, Amerigo Vespucci. He was an Italian navigator too that navigated with Spain and Portugal. And he, by traveling the Columbus ways and Vasco da Gama's ways, he discovered that the Columbus Indies weren't the real Indies, like Vasco da Gama's Indies. So he had a thought, and he thought that these Columbus Indies were a whole new continent, and the name America comes from him. Amerigo in Latin is Americus. So now let's talk about who arrived in America before Columbus. This guy here is a Muslim Chinese navigator. He's called Zheng He, and we don't have like concrete proofs about if he really arrived in America, but we have like theories. Some historians defend, some not, but we have like books like 1421, the year China discovered the world, that defend that he really arrived in America. So we don't know that he has arrived or not, but if he has, he arrived before Columbus. Now let's talk about Vikings. This guy here is called Erik Thorvaldsson, who was known as Erik the Red because of his red hair and beard, and he was living in Norway when his father was exiled from there for the crime of manslaughter, and he and his family went to live in Iceland. But he was a Viking, he was an explorer, and then he was navigating by the north part of the Atlantic Ocean, and then he accidentally arrived in Greenland. Greenland is an island that is in the American continent. So technically he discovered Greenland, so we could say that he discovered America too. But he never arrived in the continental part of America like Canada or USA or whatever. So let's talk about his son, Leif Eriksson. He was a Viking too, a Norse Viking that lived in Iceland. He started the settlement of the Greenland, the land that his father discovered, and he was an explorer too, a Viking. So he was traveling, like you can see here, and then he arrived here in the east part of Canada and the northeast part of the USA, and he started a settlement there. He made Norse camping sites there, and technically he discovered America too. But I only talk about men who weren't American guys, because when Columbus arrived there were natives. And how did these natives got there? So let's talk about the settlement theories of the American continent. So the first one that I'm going to talk about is the Bering's Land Bridge theory. It defends that like people that were living in the northeast part of Asia, like Russia here and China, they crossed the Bering Sea here. This is the Bering's Land Bridge, and they crossed the Bering Sea when it was frozen in the last glacial era, like 20,000 and 12,000 years ago. And this one is the most accepted theory about the American settlement theory, because we have like concrete proofs. We have like fossils here of 15,000 years ago. But it exists like another theories, and this one that I'm going to talk about here, the Pacific Ocean theory. It's not as accepted as this one, but it's accepted too. It's like improved. So it defends that humans that were living here, like in Australia and New Zealand, Malaysia and ocean, they crafted primordial rafts, and then they crossed all along the Pacific Ocean, and then they arrived in South America. This theory is not as accepted as this one, but we have like explorers that traveled from here in Argentina to Australia by these primordial rafts. They made primordial rafts and they crossed the sea. So we can say that it is possible too. So my final conclusion about all of this that I'm talking about. History depends from the one that is telling you. So it could be books, teachers, school, or whatever. I think that we must think more outside the box, because what we learn in school, it's like just a bubble floating in a whole big ocean of it. Thank you, everyone.